Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're in Munich, a city that is just soaked in history. We're here to deconstruct a speech that's a real masterclass in persuasion, and we're going to use the analysis of Beck as our guide to uncover the powerful rhetorical formula hidden inside it. So, to really get the power of this speech, you have to start where it starts, with the memory of the Berlin Wall. This isn't just history, it's an emotion. It brings you back to a time when civilization felt incredibly fragile, and the line between two completely different worlds, well, it was literally drawn in concrete. Okay, so the speech we're diving into is being looked at through the lens of Beck. And he argues that its real power isn't just in the words themselves, but in its structure. It follows this really deliberate pattern that's designed to take an audience from a past they all share toward a future they can build together. What Beck identifies is this repeatable 5-step formula. And he makes the case that this isn't just some political trick. No, it's more like a universal blueprint for building a really compelling argument, for uniting an audience, and ultimately for getting them to act. And here it is. This slide is the whole playbook. This 5-step logic is the engine driving the persuasion. You start with a memory everyone can agree on. Then, you state the problem we're facing now. After that, you lay out your goal, you invite others to join you, and then, and this is key, you circle right back to that first memory to show them the promise of a better future. This is the framework for our whole breakdown. So let's zoom in on those first 2 steps, because this is where the core conflict of the argument gets built. It creates this powerful clash between a unifying memory of the past and the very real dangers of the present. And this slide just lays out that contrast perfectly. On one side, you've got the Cold War, a time of shared purpose, when people felt like they were fighting for something bigger than themselves. And on the other side, the complacency that set in after the wall fell, this idea that we'd reached the end of history. So this brings us to what's called the dangerous delusion. This is step 2, you state the problem. Beck explains that this was seen as this foolish idea that just ignored 5,000 years of human history and nature. It led to things like de-industrialization, outsourced sovereignty, and basically weakened defenses all around. But check out the framing here. This is so important. It's not an accusation. The speech presents this whole delusion as a shared mistake. By saying we made these mistakes together, it's tapping back into that memory of unity to call for a shared responsibility to fix the problem now. So once you've established that unifying memory and the shared problem, the speech makes a pivot. It moves right into the final 3 steps of the formula, laying out a clear goal, extending an invitation, and then making a really powerful promise about the future. And right here, you can see those final 3 steps in action. The goal, renewal, simple. The invitation, let's do this together. And the promise, this is the clincher. It connects directly back to that initial, unifying memory of a proud and sovereign past. It completes the circle. According to Beck's analysis, the whole point here was about transformation, not confrontation. The goal wasn't to tear down the alliance, but to remind it of why it started in the first place. The message was really clear. We want strong allies, not dependent allies. Okay, so this brings us to the real core takeaway from the analysis, and it goes way beyond politics. It's about a fundamental human conflict that really every single generation faces, that deep choice between remembering the hard lessons of the past and the tempting, easy path of forgetting them. And ultimately, the entire message of the speech that's boiled down to this one powerful question. It argues that survival, for a culture, for a nation, for a whole civilization, it's not automatic. It's not guaranteed. It's an active choice that has to be made again and again. So why is that choice so tough? Well, because success makes us comfortable. It makes us forget. According to the analysis, the incredible victory at the end of the Cold War led directly to this collective amnesia. We kind of assumed freedom was on autopilot, and we traded in our vigilance for comfort. You know, the appeal of forgetting is incredibly powerful, right? It feels modern, it feels compassionate and safe. It feels like you're moving on. But the argument here is that this feeling is a trap. It's how civilizations can end up sleepwalking into their own decline. Because the ultimate point is this: memory, as difficult as it can be, is absolutely essential. It's the very mechanism that reminds us that freedom isn't free. It requires limits, it demands responsibility, and more than anything, it requires intention. Memory is what keeps the lights on. So, the final question isn't just for a roomful of politicians in Munich. It's for all of us. Because what we, as a generation, choose to remember from our history, and maybe more importantly, what we choose to forget, that is the single biggest thing that will define our future.